Bhagavatim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutamashloki bhakti bhavati naishliki. Text 23, chapter 6, canto 2. Yada asya navyat nalinat aham asam mahatmana na avidam yagya sambaran purusha avayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asa mahatmana navidam yagya sambaran purusha vayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asa mahatmana navidam yagya sambaran purusha vayavan asa mahatmana navidam yagya sambaran purusha vayavan rite. Who else would like to chant the verse?
Yadasya nabhyam nalidat
Yadasya nabhyan nalinad
aham asam mahatmana
aham asa mahatmana
navidam yagya sambaran
navidam yagya sambaran
purusha vayavan rite.
purusha vayavan rite. Would anyone online like to chant the verse?
Yadasya nabhyam nalinad
Yadasya nabhyam nalinad
aham asam mahatmana
aham asam mahatmana
navidam yagya sambara
navidam yagya sambara
purusha vayam vamrite.
purusha vayavan rite. Yadasya nabhyam nalinad Yadasya nabhyam nalinad aham asam mahatmana
Aham
asam mahatmana navidam yagya sambara
navidam yagya sambara
purusha vayavan rite.
purusha vayam
Rite. Yadasya nabhyam nalinad
yadasya nabhyam nalinad
aham asam mahatmana
aham asam mahatmana
navidam yagya sambaram
navidam yagya sambara
purusha vayavan rite.
purusha vayam rite.
Yadasya nabhyam nalinad
Yadasya nabhyan nalinad
aham asam mahatmana
aham asam mahatmana
navidam yagya sambaran
navidam yagya sambaran
purusha vyavan rite.
purusha vayavan rite.
Yadasya nabhyam nalinad
Yadasya nabhyan nalinad
Aham Asha Mahatmana
Aham Asa Mahatmana
Navidam Yajya Sambaram
Navidam Yagya Sambaran
Purusa Vayavanrite
Kushabaya Panvite. Yada,
Yada.
at the time of,
At the time of
Asya,
Asus,
his,
his
Nabyat,
Nabya,
from the abdomen, Nalinat, from the lotus flower,
lotus flower,
Aham,
Aham,
myself,
myself,
Asam,
Asam,
took my birth,
my birth,
Maha Atmana,
Mahatmana,
of the great person,
of the great person,
Na Avidam,
Abhidya,
did not know,
did not know,
Yagya,
Yagya,
sacrificial,
sacrificial,
Sambaran,
Sambara,
ingredients,
ingredients,
Purusha,
Purusha,
of the Lord,
of the Lord,
Avayavan,
Abhayavan,
personal bodily limbs,
personal body limbs,
Rite,
Rite,
accept.
accepts.
Translation. This is Brahma speaking to Narada Muni. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. Purport by Sterling Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Brahma, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, is known as Swayambhu, or one who is born without father and mother. The general process is that a living creature is born out of the sex combination of the male father and the female mother. But Brahma, the firstborn living being, is born out of the abdominal lotus flower of the Mahavishnu, plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. The abdominal lotus flower is part of the Lord's bodily limbs, and Brahma is born out of the lotus flower. Therefore, Lord Brahma is also a part of the Lord's body. Brahma, after his appearance in the gigantic hollow of the universe, saw darkness and nothing else. He felt perplexity, and from his heart, he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity, thereby acquiring the ingredients for sacrificial performances. But there was nothing besides the two of them, namely the personality of Mahavishnu and Brahma himself, born of the bodily part of the Lord. For sacrificial performances, many ingredients were in need, especially animals. The animal sacrifice is never meant for killing the animal, but for achieving the successful result of the sacrifice. The animal offered in the sacrificial fire is, so to speak, destroyed. But the next moment, it is given a new life by dint of the Vedic hymns chanted by the expert priest. When such an expert priest is not available, the animal sacrifice in the fire of the sacrificial altar is forbidden. Thus, Brahma created even the sacrificial ingredients out of the bodily limbs of the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, which means that the cosmic order was created by Brahma himself. Also, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. I'll read that one again. Also, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. Quote, everything is made from my bodily limbs, and I am therefore the original source of all creations. The impersonalists argue that there is no use in worshiping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. The personalist, however, worships the Lord out of a great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of the bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth, and yet Mother Earth is worshipped by the sensible devotee with ingredients born from the earth. Similarly, Mother Ganges is worshipped by the water of the Ganges, and yet the worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. Worship of the Lord is also performed by the ingredients born from the bodily limbs of the Lord, and yet the worshipper, who is himself a part of the Lord, achieves the result of devotional service to the Lord. While the impersonalist wrongly concludes that he is the Lord himself, the personalist, out of a great gratitude, worships the Lord in devotional service, knowing perfectly well that nothing is different from the Lord. The devotee therefore endeavors to apply everything in the service of the Lord, because he knows that everything is the property of the Lord and that no one can claim anything as one's own. This perfect conception of oneness helps the worshiper in being engaged in his loving service, whereas the impersonalist, being falsely puffed up, remains a non-devotee forever without being recognized by the Lord. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Muscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vansikalpata Yuvyaschа Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. Yadasya Nabhya Nalina Rahama Samahatmana Navidam Yaga Sambaran Pusha Vaivan Vite. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. Okay, well, yesterday I wasn't much at morning program or the morning class and discussion, but I did overhear, and I came in for a few minutes, made a comment, and I heard several of you over here, some of you were here who are currently online, you were talking about the Big Bang, and so here, well, Prabhupada says, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam prabhavartate. Quote, everything is made from my bodily limbs, and I am therefore the original source of all creation. So we discussed that if we look at the very detailed scientific description of creation given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam this morning. Srimad Bhagavatam, you might say it's the natural follow-up Shastra, the natural follow-up literature to Bhagavad Gita. And like all the themes of Bhagavad Gita are expanded in Srimad Bhagavatam, including creation. Bhutva Praliyate. Bhagavad Gita describes about creation in so many ways, and Bhagavatam goes into it into a lot more detail and depth. And so if we look at it, the description, the scientific description of creation of the Bhagavatam, it's not wrong to say it was a Big Bang. So it's not wrong to say that. We discussed this yesterday a bit. I mean, that's, it's very simplified. It's fascinating the way one element comes from the other, the more subtle element like that. But it's not wrong to say it came from a Big Bang. The key point is that everything starts from consciousness. And here, the supreme consciousness, the supreme person. So in the, let's call it the material description of the Big Bang, I think maybe it was George referenced, I think it was Rupert Sheldrake, who described modern empirical materialistic science. The response there is like, yeah, if you, their stance essentially is, if you just give us one free miracle, we can explain everything. Okay. So I've heard a quote attributed to Albert Einstein. He said, there are two ways to see the world. One, either nothing's a miracle, or two, everything's a miracle. And so it depends, how we can see everything's a miracle. At the same time, miracle in a sense means that like we don't understand how it's happening. We don't understand how it's happening. So just like this whole computer arrangement, let's say someone from 200 years ago were to be transported here, say this is a miracle, right? Like that. But there's something electronic. I don't know too much, but we understand modern technology. We have these things figured out. At the same time, if we really go more deeply into everything, we'll find that, actually I don't have a grasp on it. And this is the miraculous power, the inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So idea starts, we discussed also yesterday briefly that like the idea of something coming from nothing, and Prabhupada's addressing that here in relation to the pastime of Brahma and Garbhodakshai Vishnu. The idea of something coming from nothing, right? So these you might say foundational theories of, I will say that actually scientific theory means one can predict. It means one has, there's a mathematical basis. So in many respects, they don't even fit the description of theory, but the idea of, they go against the scientific principle, the physical principle of entropy. Entropy means without input of consciousness, without input of a conscious person, a material system will go to greater and greater disorder. So which means like you have a big bang, a big explosion, starting from a nothing, a singularity, whatever they want to call it, a big explosion. How does that lead to Shakespeare's sonnets? How does that lead to the precise rotation of the planets? Just like, like the sun is this vast stellar body. And if it were to go like a fraction of a percentage out of its orbit, then within nanoseconds, we burn in blazing fire. Or if it goes the other way out of its orbit, within nanoseconds, we're ice cubes. Right? So how does everything just, how did that amazing, precise structure and organization start from an explosion? The physics principle of entropy, like for example, like if you have an explosion, you have a bomb exploding over, a nuclear bomb exploding over a city. Does the city become more beautiful, organized, and structured? No, the city goes into greater disarray. So for something to go, for a material system to go from lower organization to higher level structure requires conscious input like this. So we can say it started with a Big Bang. It's not wrong to use that language. And the Big Bang unfolded and evolved to higher and higher structured forms. Whether it's the planets, the veins of the leaf, the human brain, whatever it is, through the input of consciousness, of the supreme consciousness. Things don't go from gross to subtle. Things unfold from subtle to gross. Essentially, like we speak about the principle of clear intention, right? So from that subtle platform of consciousness, we have an intention. We might be conscious of it or not. We use the analogy of an ant walking back, an ant walking south on the back of an elephant galloping north. So which direction is the ant going? Well, it's going north very quick. But the ant might think, no, I'm walking south. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath that, there can be all sorts of intentions and desires and motivations that are beneath the conscious surface. Carl Jung said, till we make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct our life, and we'll call it fate. And so the spirit soul's like a magnet. And so the intention of the spirit soul, whether conscious or not, attracts material energy. It's no accident we got this particular body. According to our intention, according to the combination of what we intended and what we deserved, law of karma and law of intention, then we attract matter all around us. And so in the universal sense, the innumerable living entities in this universe, of the whole material cosmos, which consists of innumerable universes, each universe, but this universe has 14 planetary systems. So through the collective intention of the living entities, we have attracted this whole universe and everything that's unfolding. So things go from subtle to external, starting from the most subtle. Even in a sense, even more subtle than the Jiva soul is the super soul, and even more subtle than that, and the source of super soul is that supreme person. So for a system to go to higher and higher levels of organization, that happens with the input of personal consciousness. We don't need to keep this abstract, just like, okay, so things just get dirtier and dirtier and dustier. And and then I notice, oh, things are clean and shiny. It just happened. No, it didn't just happen. Actually, Bhakta Keith and Ramachandra, they got out the mop and the broom, and they put intention, and you sweep here and you mop there, and there's a bucket of water, and there's a whole system. There's a whole system. Without conscious input, this place gets messier and dirtier and dirtier. Okay. So just to bring philosophy down to our household here, our household temple, okay? And it's the same with the other ideas, the idea of, let's say, life coming from matter, okay? So again, matter is relatively unorganized, and then all organic forms, that's a much higher level of organization, okay? So life coming from matter, again, goes against the physics law of entropy. You can say, yeah, but we have proof. Proof means, okay, let's see it. First of all, there's no mathematical model for it, and no one has ever mixed dead matter chemicals in the laboratory to create, what to speak of a human being, even a mosquito or an amoeba or a paramecium. Life start. We have trillions of examples of life coming from life. A tree comes from a seed, which comes from a living tree. We all came from living parents who came from living parents and grandparents. And so in nature or the laboratory, there's no example of life coming from dead matter. And so, that makes sense because it would be against, again, the principle of entropy. Similarly, the idea of lower species evolving into more sophisticated species, okay? And the idea is like these theories, this theory of evolution, and the idea, at least in my growing up, the idea is all smart people know that that's true. All smart people know that, yeah, life started from soup, the primordial soup. Life started from the primordial soup, and then there was evolution. All smart, educated people, only primitive people don't accept that. Okay, there's a phrase I got from George Will, who's a very good writer. He used the phrase, the herd of independent thinkers meaning all independent thinkers know that evolution's a fact. Actually, if we look at it, it's not even a theory, it's a fantasy. Now again, just like with Big Bang, there is evolution. Prabhupada makes the point that Darwin got a lot of his theory from the Padma Purana. The Padma Purana describes evolution. So there is an evolution, but it's evolution of the conscious entity. Okay, it's just like someone might live in a one-room efficiency apartment, and then according to their means, they get more income. Then they move into a two-bedroom apartment, and then maybe they move into a villa, and then maybe they move into a 5-bedroom, or like that. So there's different apartments that's described. There's 8,400,000 species. There's different there's 8,400,000 types of bodies, and the living entity moves from one to the next according to their desire and deserve. So there is, evolution, and as far as, but it's not that the efficiency apartment morphs into the villa. Okay, no, but the person might move from the efficiency apartment into the villa, like that. So, and again, science means it can be empirically demonstrated. So whether in nature or in the laboratory, no one's ever seen one species evolve into another. So, but all smart people know that happens. Well, Prabhupada wants his followers to actually be independently thoughtful and really think about these things. Sometimes it's argued, well, the great variety of species is clear evidence of evolution. Let's say if we were to say, the great variety of motor vehicles, there's so many types of motor vehicles, right? Cars, trucks, motorcycles, big cars. There's so many types of motorcycles, so some type of motor vehicles is clear evidence that the motorcycle evolved into the compact, and the compact car evolved into the 4-door, which evolved into the military tank. No, the variety of vehicles indicates a person. There was a person with an intention, and the person created different forms to serve different functions. Right? We can close the windows. Thanks. The person created different forms. Some person, some consciousness, or team of persons created some form for a small car that can fit into parking spaces in the city, and created a military tank for battle purposes. So variety indicates there's an intelligence that created different forms for different purposes. Same for why there's the form of a cat or a dog or a human, like that. So things start from consciousness. Things move by consciousness. Matter on its own has no power of movement, right? This body, we move because we are inside. And then Prabhupada talks about impersonalist or Mayavadis, where there's the idea there is to liberate oneself from attachment to matter, and realize the oneness of all energy. So there's truth to that. There's oneness, and there's also differentiation. So he said, the impersonalists argue there's no use in worshiping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. So this philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, given by Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada, it's the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Tattva, oneness and difference simultaneously. There's the pastime of when Lord Chaitanya, he appeared about 530 years ago, when he was a baby, he was eating dirt. He was eating dirt. And his mother Sachi, was like, Or don't eat dirt. And then Lord Chaitanya, who was named Nimai at the time, because he was born under a neem tree. And so Nimai, he argued with his mother that, look, all these vegetables and fruits and grains, they're all just productions of the earth. They're all coming from dirt anyway. And so why not just eat the dirt directly? So she was not convinced. She was not convinced. And she was a little concerned that her son was becoming a Mayavadi. And she gave the example like, okay, sure, like this clay pot is nothing but earth. At the same time, if we pour water in the clay pot, then there's one effect. And if we pour water on earth, then there's a different effect. So there's oneness and there's distinction. Prabhupada gives the example. We can say the body is one and all parts of the body are one. It's just all one. So like if our stomach feels hungry, we can just put the food in our ear. Right? I mean, that should work. No, that doesn't work. I don't need to tell anyone that. But it exposes the foolishness of philosophies of radical undifferentiated oneness. Sure, there's a oneness, like for example, where one is in humanity, and there's distinctions. I'm a person, you're a person, we're distinct persons. So similarly, in a sense, we're one with God, in the sense that the sun rays are non-different from the sun, and there's a distinction. And those who emphasize oneness without distinction, generally the distinction that we want to miss is the distinction that there's the whole and the part, the distinction of the Jiva soul and Bhagavan, the supreme soul, because the distinction that sure there's oneness and there's oneness and the spirit soul is a servant and Krishna is the master. Okay? So there's a distinction. Yeah, so in Bhakti Yoga, oneness is not I become God. I forgot I was God, but now I remember God fell into illusion somehow. I become God, like that. Yes. So Vaishnava oneness is that our desire is one with Krishna. Our desire is one with Krishna. We're eternally individual. We're eternally individual consciousness. And our natural position is to serve Krishna with love and devotion. That's oneness. That's that devotional service that creates the bridge. That's Vaishnava oneness. Actually, for a Vaishnava, it's described. That this liberation, be detached. Liberation is waiting with folded hands at the doorstep of a devotee of Krishna, waiting to serve him or her. So we were reading this morning before Japa, Haridas Thakur he was in an assembly. In the assembly, they were glorifying the holy name of the Lord. And they're saying, through the holy name, we get liberation. And Haridas Thakur was, yeah, but that's just an insignificant, unimportant byproduct. Through chanting the holy name, we get love of Krishna. We get love of Krishna. We can say, like, to be motivated to serve Krishna. In a sense, it's not a motivation in the material sense. It's just the natural consciousness. It's the original consciousness of the soul. It's be, do, have. We are lovers of Krishna. And then naturally we serve Krishna. We serve Sri Krishna, the personality of God. Ete Chamsa Klapumsa Krishna's tu Bhagavatsva. There's so many incarnations. And in about 2 weeks will be the anniversary of the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. Yeah. Okay, so that's a half man, half lion expansion of Krishna. And there's Ramachandra, and Vamanadev, and Varahadev, and there's more expansions, more incarnations than the waves in the sea. And Krishna is the fountainhead of all of them. That's the Vedic conclusion. Krishna is the fountainhead of all of them. Okay, so all right. So in material concept is like to serve. I want to be served. All right, servant. I mean, okay, I'm all right. I'll be servant for a while, but then I get to be master. Because the idea of servant, it's humiliating. It's humiliating. I want to climb the ladder. So that's material conception. And Prabhupada's emphasizing here. True spiritual life. True spiritual life. This is a glorious position. This is a glorious position to get to serve Krishna and Krishna's pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, several times in this last paragraph, he mentions how the devotee is grateful for the opportunity for service. Even in material research, actually, I don't follow things so much anymore, but back in the, maybe starting about 30 years ago, the main movement in psychology was, at least a main movement, was positive psychology. I think it still is. Actually, when I developed the Vedic personality inventory, I had some phone conversations with some of the leaders of the positive psychology movement, like Ed Diener and Martin Seligman. Ed Diener was at some university in Illinois. Seligman is a University of Pennsylvania. And these were pioneers of positive psychology movement. And the idea is like they found, like they did a meta-analysis of research studies, going back to the 1920s or earlier, and they found there was maybe 80,000 studies on depression and 60,000 studies on anxiety disorder and phobias and things like that, different personality disorders. And there was 10 studies on happiness. Okay, so psychology till that point, it was all about some relief of misery. And then positive psychology is, well, let's study about confidence and life satisfaction and happiness, not just relieving misery, but increasing happiness. So Bhagavatam is, of course, the perfection of positive psychology. So in the research of happiness, they found that the quality that most correlates with happiness, is gratitude. Gratitude. And at least to be grateful for what is. That's the quality that most. This is material studies like that, but that principle is here. The first center that Prabhupada established when he came to the West in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he had a few followers with that, and they found a storefront, and on the storefront, the previous owner had a store called Matchless Gifts, and so the followers were thinking, well, I guess we should paint over it with something. But Prabhupada said, no, this was clearly Krishna's arrangement, because what Prabhupada's giving, there's no equal, and there's nothing to surpass it. It's the matchless gift. And yesterday I had some correspondence with someone who's inquiring about this philosophy and practice of bhakti yoga. And I shared with her, I said, show me something better, show me something that makes more sense, show me a lifestyle that's more pure, and I told her, I was never interested, and I'm not interested in religion. Never particularly. I'm not interested to join something. Are you a Hare Krishna? Are you a Hindu? Are you a Jew? That never interested me. I never thought in those terms.
The fan club.
Yeah, right. Never interested, like, what's your team, you know? And I said, and I am interested, and I have been interested, you know, at least for 45 years or so, I love the term Prabhupada uses, a true science of self-realization, a philosophy of life that satisfies my intellect, and a process that we can practice, a process I can practice where I actually experience transformation of qualities, transformation of consciousness, transformation of heart, a science of self, science of self-realization, science of God realization. And I said in letter, I said, you show me something that works better, you show me a philosophy of life that makes more sense, then I'll leave what I'm doing and I'll go there. And that's always been what I said, and so far no one's showed me anything that even compares. So this gratitude, you know, for me it connects with Srila Rupa Goswami. He emphasizes Utsaha Nishtadaya. That these are qualities that are very favorable to progress on the path. Enthusiasm, like if I got the greatest gift here, to chant Hare Krishna, to follow this process of bhakti yoga, to follow what Prabhupada gave. There's nothing better. And if we think there's something better, then that might lead us to, let's go try something, see how it goes, experience it. And if, you know, it's a gratitude that, yeah, I'm privileged, I'm thankful to, not that I found this process, that this sublime process found me. And then with enthusiasm, I practice enthusiasm, patience, and determination, steadiness. Because, I did an interview with Dr. Patrick Mangum yesterday, and I guess it'll be on Facebook today. I don't know how these things go, but anyhow, it was a fun interview. And you know, the idea of the pandemic, this, that, and yeah. So I was like, yeah, well, that's the material context. So Maya is working hard, and she's smiling all the while, to distract us from Krishna consciousness, working hard mainly through our mind and through whether it's disease, economics, other people who are disturbing doubts, right? And so determination, steadiness. Prabhupada said, well, he said, paraphrasing, like he's a lot more interested in a steady moon than some shooting stars. I mean, that's the quality that pleases a spiritual master the most, steadiness. Whatever is going on, and we can count on the material world. We can count on the material world to send us one earthquake after the next, one pandemic after the next, whether it's literal or figural, or figurative. We can count. The world's made of miseries and disturbances, and the disturbance can mean great success and things are going well. Who needs to chant 16 rounds? Things are going well. I don't need to chant. Things are going well. Things are not going well. So steadiness, such if we want to progress steadily in our eternal life. So Prabhupada emphasizes gratitude quite a few times there. This verse, text 23 of chapter 6, canto 2, reads, Yadasya nabhya nalinad aham asa mahatmana navidam yagya sambaran purusha bhavan rite. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. That's a main point I didn't touch on, so I'll just briefly touch on it. Because sometimes we can think, yeah, I want to sacrifice more for Krishna. I want to give more of what I have to Krishna. So that's nice. And then like a fuller realization is I really have nothing to give. I'm borrowing it all from Krishna. Prabhupada gives the example of the earth is worshipped with fruits and flowers, which all come from the earth. The Ganges is worshipped with Ganges water. So similarly, the example we sometimes give, let's say if I'm in Campus USA Bank. There's a branch here in Alachua, and I walk out of the bank and I declare to the whole town of Alachua, I renounce the millions of dollars in this bank. I renounce it. I give it up. I give it up. So someone could come to me, David Wolf, you don't own the $1 million. It's not yours to. You don't own it. So you're raining on my parade. Okay. So similarly, we might have money in our bank account. We might have a car. We might have a property in our name like that. We say, yeah, and we want to use it for Prabhupada's mission. Nice. And develop the conception, actually, this is all borrowed. This is all borrowed, whether it's the relationship, the family, the properties, the vehicles, the monetary assets. This is all Krishna's anyway. And yeah, and it's like under my care, and let me use it properly in the service of the Supreme. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. And I welcome if there's any questions or comments at this time. Bhaktin Dominique.
Hare Krishna. Earlier we were talking about evolution and miracles, and there's this quote that Charles Darwin said that I just looked up and found. He said, to suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances, okay, I don't even know what that means, but for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration. So to suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. So, you know, I think that he says a lot more about it. He still ended up believing in his theory, but the point is that the eye is like a miracle and doesn't fit with.
Yeah, that's a great quote from Charles Darwin, and that's a great quote. Thanks for bringing that here, because it points to the principle of viable successive approximations. I'll explain. Not that I'm like I know too much about biology or evolution, but no, it's an important point, and Darwin saw that fatal shortcoming there. So viable successive approximations, because the idea of evolution is survival of the fittest. Of course, Prabhupada would sometimes say they don't know what it means to survive, and they don't know what it means to be fit. But anyhow, back to viable successive approximations. So survival of the fittest, which means, so you got a species, this according to their, I'm not even going to call it theory, according to their conjecture. You got a species. Then for it to evolve, then each evolutionary structure needs to make the species more fit, stronger. Otherwise, it'll be destroyed because it's not the fittest. It's just got some extra baggage. So something like the eye of a mammal, the eye of a human. Okay, so something like the eye, and there's many other examples of this. Something like the eye, for it to work, you got maybe millions of parts, hundreds of thousands of parts, and it's all useless unless each part is in place. So let's say you got just some photosensitive dot of a plankton or something. Okay, a very relatively simple organism. So how does it develop an eye? Because And if the next stage of evolution, it has 20 of the parts, but it still needs another 5 million parts. Well, then those 20 parts are just excess baggage for the whole organism. And then it won't survive. It won't survive. It needs all 5 million parts to come together in one moment. And that torpedoes the whole theory of gradual evolution. They know that. That's why somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, not just because of the fatal shortcoming of viable successive approximations, but it was clear that maybe it was like 100, 120 years after Darwin, and it was clear the fossil record does not support evolution of species. No, but in third grade, I heard from Mrs. Gergard that it does. And in fifth grade, Mr. Mazer, he was my science teacher, he said it does. No, we're not talking about what they teach in elementary school or high school or even college. What they actually know at their conferences. The fossil record does not support evolution. There's top evolutionists, directors of institutions of evolutionary research who say, and we know that the fossil record will never support evolution. So you can say, what are you saying, Dhira Govinda Das? So they know that. That's why in the early 70s, they developed a theory called punctuated equilibrium. Fancy term. Punctuated equilibrium means that it didn't happen gradually. In terms of geologic time, it happened fairly rapidly. Like maybe like a whole bunch of species quickly evolved to a higher level of species through like a lightning bolt or a meteor or something like that. So it didn't happen gradually. That's the theory, punctuated equilibrium. The top evolutionists, Leakey and others, that again, we're not talking about what they teach in high school and the pictures they draw and things like that. So the idea is, it didn't happen gradually, it happened quickly because of a meteor or lightning bolt. That's how the species changed. And the proof of punctuated equilibrium is that there's no proof. See, the proof is that you can't find in the fossil record gradual species of one to the next because it wasn't gradual. So that's the proof, is that there's no evidence. Now I want everyone to nod your head. Okay, good. So in other words, if the fossil record supported gradual evolution like Darwin taught, then why would they need to develop that theory? And then there's the whole viable successive approximations, which they just have no mathematical answer to, no practical answer to. And you mentioned the eye, quoting Darwin. It's a great quote from Darwin. There's many other, there are some microscopic organisms, and like in order to function, they have this very sophisticated motor in order to move. And again, for that motor to function, it's like 100,000 parts. And if one part's missing, then the whole organism just dies. So how did the previous species develop into that species of paramecium or whatever with the motor? Everything needs to come together. There's no way it could happen gradually, because then it won't be a fit species. It'll be destroyed. So many examples like that. Thank you, Dominique.
Hare Krishna.
Ladini Shakti, Hare Krishna.
It's like hearing you speak about evolution theory, I'm thinking like we are here in this world because we want to forget Krishna. And so like it's like on like examples like this, it's just like so obvious how it works. Like that, like Maya tricks us to like believe that there is no God by like being able to believe in such theories. It's quite amazing.
Quite amazing, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. When we really look at what's happening, it's clear that humankind creates these theories for some pseudo-intellectual reason to not accept and not serve God. And it's clear like that's the only motivation.
Right, but also like the Maya potency, like
Maya.
it like requires like so much like loss of intelligence.
Yeah.
So
Maya paritagyana, and Krishna describes types of persons who are intellectual and educated, and their knowledge is covered by illusion, because Maya is reciprocating with the desire to keep the illusion, to keep the illusion that I am the controller, I'm the master, or in terms of him, but Prabhupada will sometimes make the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, if they're realized, in a sense, they're also, they've risen above some gross Maya, but it's still ignorance to not see the difference between the jiva, so the minute jiva soul and the supreme soul. So Maya paritagyana, you can just see it working when we dissect these pseudo theories. Thanks for sharing, Ladini Shakti. Ramachandra.
Yeah. My question is, you already sort of extrapolated with that, but maybe you or the audience would like to extrapolate further on what would you say is the effect collectively on us in our human experience, like accepting evolution and like siding with all these theories?
Okay, Ramachandra is asking, what's the effect collectively on the human species of kind of accepting? I appreciate your question, because this is the new blind faith. This is the new religion, right? Evolution, life from matter, Big Bang. So this is the new blind faith religion that the herd of independent minds, it accepts, and then everyone else, accepts. So the effect is quite deep and powerful and devastating, because so well, sometimes Prabhupada joking would say, yes, maybe Darwin's grandfather was a monkey, but otherwise no. So okay, because here's the thing, like say in personal growth or psychology, self-worth, you should believe in yourself, and self-esteem, like that. Well, here's the thing, how much self-esteem can we really have if essentially I'm a bag of stool? Yeah. If essentially I'm a bag of blood and bones. How much self-esteem? If we take spirit out of it, and I'm just an automaton. It is said about modern psychology. First modern psychology lost its soul, then it lost its conscience, and now it's lost its mind altogether. If you look at the trends in hit psychology. So that, there's just this blind, random atoms colliding that led to this. So it leads to hopelessness, despair, and if we're taking the life out of life, and that we just came from some random chance molecules, atoms colliding. And we're just this bag of stool and pus, and that is my identity. We can make it flowery, but that's it. How much like self-worth can we really feel? Some of you have perhaps heard me quote a valedictorian at Harvard University in the 1980s. And this valedictorian is one he's chosen from the class to give the speech at graduation, like top student. So, so he started his speech. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one experience that all of us graduates have had at this fine institution of higher learning. And that experience, ladies and gentlemen, is confusion. And then he went on and he said, the freedom of our day is the freedom to devote ourselves to any values that we choose on the mere condition that we don't believe them to be true. Yeah, so he's talking about nihilism, and he's talking about, in other words, the idea of equality is because everything's reduced to meaningless nothing. And that's the idea. If you actually believe in some value, okay, then you're primitive. Then you're not a smart person, because the idea again, if everything comes from nothing, we come from nothing. We're just a bag of chemicals. Then what's the basis for ethics? Let's say if I rearrange some chemicals and they call it murder, it's just some rearranged chemicals. What's the basis for ethics? What's the basis for purpose? What's the basis for meaning? And the valedictorian, before they got the cane and pulled him off the stage, he was exposing that in the so-called educated society, if one actually stands on some values absolutely, then that's derided. That's degraded. So these are effects of these conjectures that are based not just on removing God, but on removing the consciousness of the person itself. The idea is consciousness is just life comes from matter. It's either consciousness is an illusion and there is no consciousness. That's what they're saying. Or consciousness is an epiphenomenon of matter at a certain level of organization. Again, okay, then prove it. Go and combine matter and create a conscious entity. They've not done it. So these voidist theories, materialistic theories that take not just supreme consciousness, but even individual consciousness out of the picture. So they lead to a crisis in mental health. Crisis, they lead to all sorts of anarchy, voidism, despair.
Thank you so much for that. It was very enlightening.
Hare Krishna, thanks for your question.
Some people who believe in God believe that God created evolution, so they mix the theories. They mix the two theories together. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure, like we said about the Big Bang, we could call it that. So there is evolution of the soul. Okay, so we can say, yes, so God created evolution. Well, still, okay, well, still the fossil record doesn't support it. There's the principle of viable successive approximations that torpedoes the whole theory. All right, so what goes in the name of Darwinian evolution or neo-Darwinian evolution? It doesn't make sense to me from the Vedic point of view. The Vedic point of view describes evolution. We gave that example. Yeah, there's 8,400,000 apartments and the people go from one apartment to the next. That's a form of evolution. So that makes sense to me. As far as the Darwinian form, you can try to bring God into it or the Pope or whoever. It just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you, Dominic.
Hare Krishna, thank you for class, David. I liked when you said Maya is happily doing her service and she's smiling while she's doing it. And it gave me the thought that in order to get out of Maya, one would need to be even more of a devotee than Maya in order to overcome like the sincerity of her service to help us forget Krishna. To overcome her, we'd need to be even more devoted than she is to making us forget. We need to be even more devoted to remember Krishna.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, in a sense, Maya's task is a thankless task. And in a sense, she's not happy to see the conditioned souls foolishly suffering and causing suffering to each other in conditioned material existence. As you're aware, Maya is compared to like the warden of the prison. And so in the sense, ideally, the warden of the prison would like all the prisoners to become law-abiding, like that. But the warden of the prison is just as much a servant of the state as the director of the university system. But it's a particularly thankless task. The warden needs to deal with criminals, and Maya's service is to deal with persons like us. Yeah, so just as you say, there's a verse, it's an oft-quoted verse by Prabhupada, 14th verse of the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Devyesha gunamai, mama maya duratyaya, mameva yiprapadinte mayam itam charantite. Krishna says to Arjuna, yeah, this Maya is impossible to overcome. And one who's my devotee can easily cross beyond Maya. So we need to be taking deep shelter in Krishna. I mean, if we take a little shelter in chanting Hare Krishna, that's nice. But to really overcome Maya, to really cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence requires that we're giving it everything, meaning we're unshakable, dritavrata. And then actually, when the devotee passes all the tests and challenges and tricks of Maya, she's very happy. She's very happy when we actually come to pure devotional service. Thank you, Ezzy. Dr. Keith.
You touched a bit on the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Like, I don't know that much about it, but you were mentioning that it's like kind of like it's like a cornerstone of philosophy, Lord Chaitanya put forth. So I was wondering if there's, or what the connection, I feel like there's some connection to this, but I can't really do it clearly. But like in the invocation to the Sri Upanishads,
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Mudachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Everything. Yeah, that's a classic Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva verse.
Yeah.
So well, it says everything is complete and perfect. Even the material world's complete and perfect. So by superfluous analysis, we say, well, whoever spoke Isha Upanishad hasn't looked at the material world recently. Doesn't look perfect or complete to me. They're aware of coronavirus and what about all the brutality? There's so much greed and violence. So there's, in one sense, Prabhupada says Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva can be applied to everything. Everything is one and different from everything else. So one way to understand it is that this body, this whole context of society, the world, it's a complete and perfect arrangement for my self-realization. And so our opportunity is to respond to the disturbing incompleteness, to respond to it with full devotion for self-realization and developing love of God. And that's the complete and perfect response. To the extent that I'm not aware of my connection with Krishna, then I experience incompletion and imperfection. Okay. Actually, we're always connected with God. We forget that we're connected. So yeah. So there's a purport in Bhagavad Gita verse that Prabhupada says, your grandmother is Krishna, and right. So in a sense, to the extent that we evolve our consciousness, we see Krishna everywhere. We see Krishna in each atom. We see Krishna in each situation, in each circumstance. At the same time, our grandmother is also different from Krishna. So that chair, the glass of water, it's all Krishna. It's one with Krishna. It's all Krishna's energy. And Krishna is present in each atom. And at the same time, it's different. So whether it's the material energy or ourselves, to realize the oneness with God and the difference. And yeah, that's it. And then that, because it's not just oneness and difference. It's not just simultaneous oneness and difference. It's inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. So the inconceivable means just by material calculations, we're going to be real limited in how to understand how everything's one and different. Through bhakti, we open up to, I'll call it, trans-phenomenal, trans-cognitive revelation and realization. We get trans-rational realization of how everything's one and different. The more that we give ourselves humbly and submissively to the process of bhakti, we get trans-rational realization.
So yes, yeah, it's the cognitive process of digesting the material world to when I can try to understand the oneness and difference, and then when I come to the point where I realize that it's inconceivable, then there's the concomitant surrender in that, and then I'm able to make that connection to see how it's connected to Krishna.
I like the way I expressed that. Yeah, we can use our logic, rational propensities to come to the point of seeing the limit. It's not useless, but we can use rationality and logic to come to the limit of rationality and logic, and to come to understand, okay, there's a deeper, more complete way of knowing that which is beyond the mind and senses, and that's called bhakti yoga. So we can use logic to come to the point of surrendering fully to devotional service to Krishna. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So there's the Western philosopher Immanuel Kant, German philosopher. One of his main works is called Critique of Pure Reason, and that's my understanding of what he's saying. That reason can take us so far, but then it has its limits, and we can use reason to realize it has its limits. Yeah. And then the epistemology of bhakti, loving devotional service, includes everything that's there in reason, and it transcends it. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Parayojita Janya Eshivaragam Gam Charhijaka. By rendering devotional service to Vasudev, Sri Krishna, one naturally achieves detachment from matter and causeless transcendental knowledge, just by performing bhakti. And of course, part of our process of bhakti, and I like to emphasize this, is to study Prabhupada's books and to immerse our intellect and heart in this transcendental philosophy, in the transcendental pastimes. So it's not, well, I just do bhakti, so I don't need to study or read. No, that is part of our process of bhakti, an important part of our process. And if we neglect that part of the process, we'll almost surely get deviated one way or other, because our intelligence won't be clear and fixed.
If we're not reading Prabhupada's books.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your association. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.